Now, the shoulder crunch sumigashi begins with the grip itself. In fact, the move is named after the grip. That's the name that I gave it. So it's very, very important that right from the start, you understand what is going to be an effective grip that can hold someone against resistance. The one great drawback of the shoulder crunch sumigashi is that once you get that grip, it's pretty obvious and transparent to your opponent what you intend to do with it. There's only a limited range of options there. And one of the most well-known is, of course, the shoulder crunch sumigashi, the sweep. So it's important that once you establish the grip, you can maintain the grip. So the first thing we need to do if we're going to get good at this move is to understand what do we need once we get that grip to hold it in place against someone who knows how to get out of it and knows what the danger is and is trying actively to resist you. Okay, we can't believe that. So the single most important thing in here is the depth of your elbow relative to your opponent. If I go shallow on my opponent's arm and hold like so, if Reese brings his head towards my head, it's super easy for him to post on my body and then just extract his arm and move away. So what I need, from my perspective, is my hand, in this case it's my left thumb, going across my opponent's neck like so, and his bicep as close to my neck as possible. The further Reese's bicep from my neck, the less successful I'm going to be here. The more Reese goes forehead to forehead, the less successful I'm going to be. So what I want is a situation where my elbow is higher than his shoulder and his bicep is as close to my neck as possible. That's why we're not big fans of holding the position supine. Okay, you can hold it here for a brief period of time, but it's much easier for him to bring his head over your head. And then you've lost that, you're in that forehead to forehead situation that we don't like. And it's much easier for him now to extract his arm and pull his arm away from you. So what we're always looking for is situations where we get his bicep jammed up there on your neck and your elbow higher than his shoulder. You can do a very good diagnostic test, which is this. You're going to take your thumb and put it underneath your own chin, and you're going to hold one-handed. Your training partner is going to stress test you. He's going to see how good is your grip, because 90% of the grip comes from the underhook arm. This hand here just locks my elbow in place. This is the working arm. This just holds the working arm in place. A lot of people make a mistake with shoulder crunch sumigashi, thinking that it's about this elbow underneath the jaw that locks an opponent in place. It's not. It's this elbow getting high. It's the outside elbow that locks our opponent in. That's why I like initially to put my thumb here on this side of the head, because it ensures that my elbow is behind his elbow, is behind his shoulder, sorry. And then when we come up and achieve our lock, now when I pinch my ear down and keep my elbow high, Reese is going to put his hand on my shoulder and go to yank out. And you'll see it's very difficult. The way we stress test this is we take our thumb and we hold one-handed. Now when he goes to yank out, you learn to rely on the two things that count: the elbow position and the neck and chin driving in like so. This just holds the arm in place. The real work is done by the combination of your head pressuring in and the elbow higher than the shoulder. So when he goes to yank out, it won't be easy for him. And you should be able to do this on both sides equally easily. Again, hand here, my elbow in the correct position. When he goes to yank out, it's not so easy for him. You want your elbow to point across his shoulder blades. The more my elbow points down towards his hips, the less successful I am, and the easier for him to pull away. So I want my elbow to point across the shoulder blades, like so. My thumb goes underneath my own chin, and I tuck my neck into the bicep. So when he goes to yank out, it's very, very tough. And I should be able to do this on both sides of the body. He goes to yank out, very difficult. That's going to make it really easy for you to add the one last key, the connected hands. From your perspective as a student learning the move, think about your elbow getting behind his rear deltoid. If your elbow is lower than his shoulder, it's very easy for him to pull free and escape. I want elbow deep, the pit of my elbow, right there in the rear deltoid. My shoulder pointing as far across the shoulder blades as it possibly can. And then from here, my head pushing into the bicep. When you get those two scissoring forces, when he goes to yank out, it's very, very difficult. Goes to yank out, very, very difficult. Then in reality, you'd be locking up your wrists and then doing the sweep, okay? Once you understand those key points of elbow position, head pressed against the bicep, you're going to be very successful. Please understand that these are best done from the seated position. Even if you do everything right, down on the floor, if you stay here too long, it's too easy for an opponent to bring the head over and then ultimately pull free. What's gone wrong? When I'm supine, I don't really control the position of his head, no matter how strong my grip is. Even if I do everything right and push my elbow pointing across the shoulder line like so, all he has to do is pose this hand on the floor, and then he can bring his head over the top and then extract his arm. But when I'm in a seated position, now his head is locked in ear to ear by my grip. When he tries to bring his head forehead to forehead, he can't do it because of my grip. This is where we do our work from, okay? If you can understand those elements, maintaining the seated position, your elbow, the pit of your elbow, right behind his shoulder blade, and your ear pressuring into his arm, then you're going to have a very strong grip, and you should be able to do it from one side to the other in the way we just described. We've been looking at the idea of the proper way to apply the grip with shoulder crunch sumigation. As you've no doubt figured out, the whole idea of shoulder crunch sumigation is it starts with the grip. The move itself is named after the grip, a shoulder crunch. And so it's very important that you have a strong sense of understanding with regards to this grip. How do you hold it against a tough opponent? How can you maintain it against a tough opponent long enough that you can actually sweep someone? And one of the most common problems that I see that people really struggle with when they try to first learn shoulder crunch sumigation is they get fundamentally the arms mixed up as to which one is the dominant arm in a shoulder crunch sumigation. So when you go into the shoulder crunch position, you have two arms. You have one arm that's on the outside of your opponent's body, and you have one arm that's on the inside of your opponent's shoulder, like so. So one is outside your opponent's shoulder, one is inside your opponent's shoulder. And typically people lock up right over the shoulder itself and crunch the shoulder down to their chest. Now that's all good, but we saw earlier in the video that it's very important that our shoulder point down our opponent's body. I never want my shoulder pointing down to the mat. I want my shoulder pointing across the shoulder blades if possible, or at least as close as I can get. At a minimum, I should be pointing my shoulder down his back, never down towards the floor. What many people get wrong, let's change our perspective slightly. What many people get wrong is that they are dominant with the inside hand here. And they think that the shoulder crunch is about lifting on their opponent's jaw with their elbow. They think that the impetus of the sweep comes from this action. But guys, can you see what's happening when I try to lift with my inside elbow? The only way I can lift with my inside elbow is to depress my right elbow. Now that means that my opponent's head comes to the center line, which is exactly what he wants to extract his arm. And so when you go dominant with the inside hand, you literally destroy your own ability to hold the grip. So if I hold in here and I try to lever Reese's head, I'm literally taking his head in the direction he needs to escape. What I need is his shoulder as close to my chest as possible and my elbow as high as possible relative to his shoulder. Now when he goes to yank out, it's very, very difficult. But the minute I start trying to lever with that elbow, it's all gone. I've literally opened up an escape route for my opponent. So you never want to be dominant and pushing with the inside elbow. Never think that shoulder crunch sumigashi is based on the leverage of your elbow moving across your opponent's body. It's done with the legs, not your upper body. The upper body just holds his arm in place. So what we're looking for in these situations once we come up, is to be pushing up with the outside elbow, never pushing up with the inside elbow, which allows your opponent to pull free. What I want to do with the inside elbow is push down with my elbow. When my hands connect, my right elbow crunches down. Watch Reese's left arm. When I apply a proper shoulder crunch, his left arm will almost always bend because it's bearing weight. If I lift with my elbow, that's when his elbow goes to the center line and he pulls free. I want my right elbow to hunker down, like I bring it to my own ribs. So when he goes to yank out, it's incredibly difficult for him. And I maintain that even as we go into the sweep itself and I start elevating him. As he reaches out for the floor with his feet, I'm just taking him in this direction here. Any movement of my right elbow is just the fact that my body is moving in that direction. It's not my elbow moving independently of my body. It's just the fact that my body overall is turning in that direction. That's what enables us now to use our feet and legs to take our opponent over. Okay? So it's very, very important you understand which is the dominant arm and what is the direction of force applied by those two arms. To summarize what we've been over, we have two arms and a shoulder crunch sumigation. The outside arm is outside our opponent's shoulder. The inside arm is inside his shoulder. When my hands connect, the outside arm is dominant. My left elbow points down his body, never down to the floor. My inside elbow exerts a force straight down. Never does the inside elbow lever upwards. This is a common mistake. It feels like it's going to work. It feels like, hey, why don't I just use my elbow to help push? And that's exactly what happens. Inside elbow crunches down. You'll see it in your training partner's other arm. When you put weight on it, his other arm is bearing that weight. So when he goes to yank out, it's incredibly difficult for him. And you feel like you have real control over this guy. When he goes to yank free, it's so difficult. Then, when I go down to a supine position, I start lifting him. This is where we get our sweeping action from. I don't lever with the elbow. It's just my right leg and left leg that takes him up and over. Okay? So once you understand, thank you, Reese, which is the dominant arm, and what is the direction of force? The outside arm, high, like so. Inside arm, elbow straight down. And that is the direction from which we can exert a strong lifting action. Don't be tempted to try and use your inside arm to lift and assist. It feels like a good idea in theory. It's a terrible idea in practice. Now, it's very important you understand whenever you go to sweep someone from bottom position in jiu-jitsu, essentially it's the act of removing your opponent's ability to post on the floor for stability. If I've been taken out of balance and all of my weight has been saved by the fact that I'm posting on the mat, if someone were to remove that post while my center of gravity was over the rest of my base, if someone removed that post, well, the result would be inevitable. I would plant down to my head and shoulder. When you go to sweep people, it's about managing your opponent's posts. He wants to post out to keep his center of gravity within the structure of those posts. You want to remove the post to use a center of gravity against him, so to speak. In the case of shoulder crunch sumigashi, your opponent has two posts. You must learn to attack them. What do I mean by this? When we start off in this position, your opponent has two means to post in the direction of your sweep. So if I start off with a given shoulder crunch and I take Reese up into the sky, you'll see that he has his right hand that can post on the floor, and you'll see that he has his right foot that can post out on the floor. And as I lift him in that direction, he's going to have to start moving that foot like so. Now, the two things that I want to remove are those two posts, his right hand and his right foot. Put your right hand out on the floor. So my shoulder crunch, what I want to do with it is I actually want to do this action. Post out. I want to take his hand behind me, like that. And at the same time, I want to push on his leg, because this is one post here, and this is the other one. And the shoulder crunch sumigashi involves the removal of those two posts simultaneously. Because that's what puts your opponent down efficiently. Placido, sleep all you, brother?
Yeah, of course.
So, we have Placido in a shoulder crunch sumigashi action. Ideally, he would want Reese to have his arm like this behind him. If you can trap the elbow on the floor, go down to the mat, Placido. If you can trap the elbow on the floor, this is the best, because now he only has one effective post. Okay, first, Placido to sweep from here is going to be very, very easy. Let's go, Placido. Let's come back. Reese has his right elbow on the floor. Perform the shoulder crunch so that Reese has to base out with his leg. Good, now Placido, find his base and just take it away again. Beautiful. Okay? So that's the removal of one post. But if Reese is smart, he's going to keep his elbow off the mat and try to post his hand on the floor. Like this. Now Placido has to use this elbow to move the hand like this. Come back. Placido, show me how far you can move the hand. Wow, that was impressive. Good. Now Placido, find the foot, and on my hand clap, take away both posts. You reach, hit it. First, best case scenario, Reese, his elbow touches the mat. Now you only have one post to have to deal with. Let's take it away. Beautiful. This time, Placido gets his hand to the mat. Good. Take his hand towards me and take away the foot. And that is a beautiful shoulder crunch sumigashi. Do you see how your opponent has two posts to work with? And the best shoulder crunch sumigashis attack both posts at the same time. Now, there's more to be said here. Placido, take bottom position and get all the prerequisites for a good sweep in position. So we're going to jack him up into the air. He's going to base out with his foot towards me, Reese. Good. Now, Placido could just sweep from here. Okay, it's possible. But it's much better if Placido takes this foot and contours his foot just above the knee. Just above the knee is best. Why do we prefer above the knee? If we go too far below the knee, I'm not going to say this can't work. Okay, it definitely can work. But if Reese is agile, he will curl his foot to his buttocks and hop over your foot. When you go above the knee, that option is taken away from him. When he tries to curl his foot above, it has no effect. If anything, it makes it worse. Okay? So my preference for your foot position is hizaguruma, the knee wield, where you put your foot just above the knee rather than sasai, the foot just above the ankle. I'm not going to say it's dead wrong to sweep the ankle. It can be done, especially if your opponent's leg is stiff and resistant, you can still sweep. But if you have a very agile opponent, someone who knows what the move is and defends it well, they're going to curl their foot and beat your reaping leg. So let's have a look at it again, Placido. Okay, get your shoulder crunch, take him down into sweep position, right there, freeze right there. This is the position that we're constantly looking to build, okay? First, Placido is going to remind us why we don't use our right elbow to sweep. If he pushes with the right elbow towards me, Reese just yanks out, okay? So that's why we don't do that. What we do is we get the guy up and we create a situation where Reese has two posts, okay? And we remove both. We take this hand, show me just the hand, Placido, move the hand. Good. So that post is taken away. Then we put our foot just above the knee. Our right leg sweeps sumigashi and our left foot takes our opponent away and we drop him straight down to the mat. And that is the action of removing your opponent's post. Reese, you're going to hit a repetition on Placido. Beautiful. Okay. Now let's look at a couple of common mistakes with the legs. Placido, bottom position. Okay, a very common mistake, we take them into sweep position. A very common mistake is you'll see people take this foot and they will put the outside of their leg in this position and try to violently reach the leg through. Again, I'm not going to tell you it can't work. Okay? Remember, guys, we're never interested in the question, will something work? We're interested in the question, will it reliably work on someone who knows how to resist it? That's the interesting question. Lots of moves work, but that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in which moves work reliably over time against really tough opponents. That's the interesting one. So when we come in here, if we put a foot on the outside and your opponent makes a stiff resistant base, when you go to reap, they can just turn their knee out towards me. And when you go to reap, it's really hard to move the leg, okay? It only works if Reese's kneecap faces downwards like this. Then you can reap away the leg using this method. You are much better off not pulling the leg, but pushing it. This is so important, I'm going to say it again. Placido, put your heel on the outside like we just talked about. When Placido puts his foot on the outside, he can only pull with his leg. He can only pull in that direction. That means you're using the weak hamstring muscles to try and pull. When Reese turns his kneecap towards me, on my hand clap, try to sweep.
It's taking so much effort, and my calf almost
cramps. Oh my God, we've got a medical emergency on the set. Placido's going into a calf cramp.
Yeah, I'm trying.
From here. We're coming back now. So instead of pulling on the leg with a reap, we're going to push on the leg away. So now you're using a leg pressing strength, much stronger than a hamstring curl. And from here, we take this guy's leg out and away, and it's done. Okay, coming back. Second reason why this is so much more efficient has to do with friction. Sweeping position. When you try to reap on the leg, Reese's toes stay in contact with the mat, okay? That means there's friction between Reese's foot and the mat, especially when he turns the kneecap outwards, and now it maximizes not only the toes, but the ball of the foot is on the mat. So now Placido tries to reap the leg away. There's so much friction with the mat, especially if Reese puts weight on that side of the body, it's impossible to move the leg. However, when we use a pushing action, you literally, Placido, don't sweep him, just elevate him up. You literally take his feet off the mat. There's zero friction with the mat now. And now when Placido turns him, you can literally flip him like a pancake, okay? Do you see, guys, how it really does make a difference how you position your legs and the mechanics of how you move the guy? These small details, people often, oh, the details are irrelevant. No, they are absolutely relevant to the performance of the move. As you enact these details on an opponent, your movement performance, your performance of the movement radically improves. So let's have a look at this again. We're going to switch places. We're going to have Reese, who's substantially lighter and smaller than Placido. It's kind of crazy, right? When I first started filming with Placido, he was the same size as Reese. now he looks like he ate Reese.
The Fanatics dinner or something.
the dinners at BJ Fanatics has been very good.
Thank you to our supporters who have kept us well fed.
So, Reese, we go in underneath and we get him up in the sky. Now, Reese, let's do an experiment. Let's take our left leg and try to reap from the outside while Placido puts friction on the mat. Let's go. It's tough, right? And now, see what happens, Reese? You're trying to compensate with your inside elbow. When you do that, look what Placido does to you. Seen a lot of guys lose this position because of this, okay? So, what we want to do is push the leg so that it loses contact with the mat. Let's go. That way the weight becomes irrelevant. That's when you can sweep a strong guy. Probably the most famous shoulder crunch sumigashi in history was performed by Gordon Ryan against the great Brazilian champion, Bochecha. Gordon, on that day, it was the second day of competition, he'd competed in his weight category and then went on to do the open weight. Gordon was weighing around 217 pounds. His opponent, Bochecha, was 263 pounds. That is a substantial difference. Not only is it a substantial difference in just sheer weight, but Bochecha is an extremely explosive and mobile 263 pounds. So it's not like he's a big, slow heavyweight. He's a very fast, athletic 263 pounds. And yet Gordon was able to spin him completely with a beautiful shoulder crunch sumigashi. And the reason why he was able to do that is because he got the feet off the mat. There's zero friction. The weight becomes irrelevant. And then, if anything, the weight works against you. You get spun over even faster. So let's see one more repetition each, guys. So let's really look at the difference between a pull on the leg versus a push on the leg. So here's the mistake we want to avoid. Some people put the foot on the outside and they try to pull the leg across. The foot never comes off the mat No, that friction makes it feel very, very difficult. Then you've got to overcompensate with your elbow, and the opponent just yanks out, and the whole thing's a disaster. Instead, we take him up into the sky. We identify 2 posts. We have the post behind us. We have the post in front, and we're going to push the post and take the foot off the mat and knock him straight down to the floor. Placido, hit it.
It's all in one go.
Yes, sir. So, take him up and over, push, and that was a beautiful shoulder crunch sumigation. So there you have it, guys. The difference between pulling on the leg with a reaping action versus pushing on the leg with a true Hisaguruma action. I'm not going to say it can't work at all using a pull. If your opponent's, if you're bigger and stronger than your opponent, or if he's caught unawares or has no idea what he's been attacked by, sure, it can work. But that's not our question. Our question is, can we get it to work on the best guys out there? The guys who know what the move is. They know how to defend it. And that you're going to have to use a Hisaguruma pushing action on the leg. You're going to have to take your opponent's hand on the floor and put it behind you. And when you take away both of the posts like that, size and strength for a few seconds become irrelevant, and you can sweep even very big, capable opponents who know what they're being attacked by. Now, as we've been at pains to point out, the whole shoulder crunch series is predicated on your ability to actually enact a strong shoulder crunch grip, one that your opponent can't easily pull away from. The one drawback of the move is when you get into a shoulder crunch, it's pretty apparent what the directions of attack are for you. And an opponent will resist that very strongly by first attacking your grip. The first thing he's going to try to break is to pull away from you. So you have to be able to make it tough for your opponent to do so. We've seen a bunch of details to do exactly that. Let's look now at one which very few people take notice of, but which is actually very important in competition. This is the idea that when we go from a supine position back to a seated position, we do so at an angle. What is the significance of this? Why is it important? Why is it going to make a difference when you go to perform this on a tough training partner? Okay, if Reese is in front of me, we know from earlier in the video that there's kind of like a 4-step pattern with regards shoulder crunch sumigation attacks. It starts in a seated position so that I can get a grip which enables me to put my opponent's hand on the floor. Then from the hand on the floor, we get the underhook. And it's from there that we get into the shoulder crunch grip. The problem is if we stay on the floor in a supine position and get a shoulder crunch, your opponent can usually bring his head over your head and pull his arm free pretty easily. So typically what we do is we perform kind of like a forward shift motion, which enables us to come up into a seated position again. Then when we connect our hands, it's so much more difficult for our opponent to pull his arm free. Here's the problem. When most people enact the forward shift, they go in a straight line. If my opponent has skill and I go in a straight line, look how easily, as I forward shift, he can bring his head, forehead to forehead, and extract his arm. So even if I have the grip in place, when I come up, that's the result. Okay? So what we make sure of is we don't go in a straight line. I go across his body at an angle. I go away from the arm that I have trapped. In fact, your opponent's arm reveals the exact angle you want to go at. If you draw a line going from Reese's arm, that's the direction that it points. That's the direction I should forward shift. So when I go to move Reese, I don't move in the direction his spine is pointing. His spine points down in this direction. I go where his arm is pointing. And when I do this, it's almost impossible for him to pull away because it puts my elbow right behind his shoulder. So when he goes to yank out, it's very, very difficult. It ensures that Reese's head stays ear to ear. What I don't want is Reese's head forehead to forehead. That's when he can pull out very easily. But when we're ear to ear, now when he goes to yank out, it's so much more difficult. And from here, we can get a true shoulder crunch going. So let's see this from another angle so you can see. With my back directly to you, this would be an example of a bad forward shift. There's Reese's spine pointing straight down, and I follow the direction of his spine, and he yanks out because he was able to take his head from one side of my body across to the other. If Reese's head can pass the center line, that's when he can pull out. So what I do is I get my arm in place and I take Reese in the direction that his arm is pointing. And that keeps his head in a position where he can't yank free. And it ensures that my elbow stays behind him. So when he goes to yank out, it's incredibly difficult. And this will make it easy for us to start taking this guy up and over. And from here into a good shoulder crunch. Let's see it, Placido.
Just the forward shift part, John?
Yeah, first we're going to do an experiment. You're going to go in, take the supine position, and lie down with it. Okay, on my hand clap, Placido, you are going to hit a forward shift directly towards me, which is actually an error. Okay, it's not what we want. Reese, on that same hand clap, you're going to make your head past the center line. Placido, don't be polite. I want you to try to maintain your grip. And Reese, you're going to competitively try to work your way out of the grip on my hand clap. Good.
That's tough.
It's hard to hold on to, even with the size difference. Coming back. Now this time, Placido, I want you to hit your forward shift towards me. And this time you're on him like a pit bull.
Yep.
Okay. Let's switch positions. Very good, Placido. Okay, Reese, first show me the mistake. Beautiful. Good timing, Placido. Now, Reese, show me the correct application. Beautiful. Now, Reese, put him up into the sky, sweep him. That was beautiful. Placido, show me a complete sequence. Correct forward shift into a full sweep. That was beautiful. Guys, do you see how seemingly unimportant details truly make a difference to your performance? Okay, a simple shift in direction is the difference between controlling the arm against a tough, knowledgeable opponent versus just losing the arm in the first 2 seconds and the whole move never even gets off the floor. Small things like this make a difference to your performance. Okay, once you have an understanding of what you're supposed to do, suddenly a move that you couldn't even get started before is now working like magic for you. It doesn't seem like much, but as I said before, I'll say it again, it makes a difference in performance.